In this comparative study, I'm going to explore the genre of film noir and neo-noir by analyzing the similarities and differences between Billy Wilder's 1944 film Double Indemnity and Andrzej Wagens's 2011 picture Elena. Double Indemnity is a classic film noir set in 1938 Los Angeles. The story unravels as an insurance salesman Walter Neff is manipulated by the seductive female fatale Phyllis Dietrichson to get involved in the murder of her cold, unloving husband and help her receive the accidental death claim. The film portrays the social turbulence and uncertainty of World War II in the form of unpredictable events where even the most moral individuals are capable of evil deeds. It also portrays the gender struggle related to the role of women in society. As the war came near the end, men returned home and discovered a significant change in the role of women. Women began working, which gave them a sense of empowerment. The fear of female domination and power is reflected in the character of the femme fatale, who bends to traditional ideas of femininity. She is unmarried, childless, sexually adventurous, and confident in pursuing her objectives. Elena is a modern neo-noir film set in present-day Russia, when elderly wealthy businessman Vladimir declares his wishes to leave his inheritance to his hedonistic daughter. His wife Elena decides to murder him in order to legally receive half of the inheritance, which would allow her to support her son Sergei and his family. The themes portrayed in the film focus on issues of present-day Russia and reflect the history, culture, and mentality of the Russian people. Two central and potentially contradicting themes can be identified in the film, the first being dysfunctional family relationships stem from preoccupation with wealth and material abundance, and second, no matter what social reforms take place, the traditional semi-rural culture of Russia stemming from peasant communities of the 18th century will sooner or later take over society. The film presents four relationship dynamics that suffer as a result of preoccupation with material values. Sergei's ungratefulness and expectation of constant financial support is implied to reflect on the behavior and values of his children. Elena attempts to receive approval and affection from her son by giving him her pension money while he gives her minimal attention, and without the money, the relationship would not exist. Elena and Vladimir are married on mutually beneficial terms, where Vladimir provides Elena with financial security in exchange for her care as a nurse, cook, and sexual partner. And finally, Vladimir's relationship with his daughter is detached because he neglected his role as a father in favor of money and his career. In her book, A. Pavlovskaya presents the common opinion, which is expressed in the second theme. The collectivist consciousness of Russian people hinders the development of individualism and capitalism in Russia by giving rise to hatred of the upstarts, that being successful business people, and ultimately slows down the economic development of the country. The portrayal of this theme also references Maxim Gorky's famous article Two Souls, which also explores this idea. Despite the vast similarities in plot and significant presence of genre conventions, various film elements are used in the films to communicate contrasting thematic ideas, which are heavily shaped by the film's cultural contexts. In addition, these films exemplify the evolution of the film noir genre over the years and across different cultures. The genre of film noir, influenced by German Expressionism and the 1930s gangster movies, emerged in the United States in the 1940s, in the midst of World War II political instability and widespread paranoia. Its distinguishing conventions, such as criminal plot, sense of claustrophobia and tension, morally ambiguous protagonist, femme fatale, and principle of fatalism are the product of the social and economic issues of the time. This comparative study will explore the similarities and differences in the interpretation and use of noir tropes in the two films. It will focus on the role of narrative elements such as motifs, themes, and characterization, as well as film elements such as cinematography and mise-en-scène, and their relation to the film's historical, socio-cultural, and economic context. In both films, characterization communicates the theme and reflects the cultural context. Double Indemnity is an early noir film which contributed to the establishment of the genre's distinct character tropes. Phyllis is a conventional example of the female fatale, middle-aged, attractive woman who uses her sexuality to manipulate the protagonist to commit murder. Throughout the film, Phyllis displays second-hand power that comes from being attractive to men and therefore being able to use their power. This is portrayed with the help of up-angle shots and establishes her dominant position in her relationship with Walter Neff. In the act of striving for independence, she confronts the patriarchy but consequently becomes the man's victim. By demonstrating ownership of her sexuality and sexuality out of marriage, Phyllis demonstrates behavior that was considered indecent for a middle-aged woman at the time, as it threatened family structure. And unlike Elena, who's content with her arrangement, Phyllis commits crime to escape her marriage and gain financial independence. However, as commonly seen in classic film noir, the femme fatale trying to bend the patriarchal family unit is destroyed at the end of the film. After that, everything goes back to normal. The protagonist with ambiguous morals, Walter Neff, gives into the temptation of money and Phyllis's manipulation, and gets caught up in a situation that spins out of his control. Low-key lighting is used to give Walter's character a dark and ominous side. Stark lighting, which adds a contrast of light and darkness to his features, connotates his moral instability. In the scene of Phyllis's murder, side lighting is used to show Phyllis's questionable morality. Her costume, a light dress, and down-angle camera positions contribute to her weak and timid image. This corresponds to the stereotypical female roles of the time: timid and inferior, expected to stay at home, look after the children, and clean. This stereotype is challenged when Phyllis is the first to shoot Walter. Walter represents the stereotypical man, upright, dominant, and powerful. This is represented by his costume, a suit, and his posture and up-angle camera positions. Conflict between genders is symbolized by the battle between Phyllis and Walter. Though Phyllis seems to have an advantage at first, the scene ends in her defeat. Furthermore, Walter's superiority is highlighted by the longer takes with his presence compared to those of Phyllis. In Elena, the qualities of conventional character tropes of film noir, the morally ambiguous protagonist, and femme fatale, are embodied in multiple characters in the film. According to Vlad Strukov, evil is not personalized, it is rather spread across a range of characters. The portrayal of characters in ways that invite the construction of meaning, rather than dictating it, adds to the conventional moral ambiguity of film noir. Elena represents many qualities seen in the morally ambiguous protagonist of early film noir. She steps on the side of evil when she makes the decision to kill her husband. However, her choice is driven by her desire to help her family. This desire is motivated both by her motherly love, but also by her need for her son's approval. As Elena looks in the mirror, the use of stark lighting on her face, a common convention of film noir and seen in Double Indemnity, reflects her moral ambiguity. One panel of the mirror is not straight, splitting her reflected image into two, her profile and the other three-quarter image. In Russian pictorial tradition derived from Byzantium, the profile was reserved for the representation of Satan, while the three-quarter image was used to represent sinners, according to Antonov and Maison. This element references Dostoevsky's novel The Brothers Karamazov, in which the character Ivan experiences a split in personality and faces his doppelganger. Much like the novel, the film investigates the origins of evil and encourages the viewer to contemplate what really caused Vladimir's death. The idea of evil incarnated in a comely person is represented in the imagery of the devil with a baby on his lap, behind Elena when she visits the church. This is another reference to the Brothers of Karamazov, in which the devil reveals his plan to turn into a female merchant, lighting candles in the cathedral. Like the classic femme fatale, Vladimir's daughter Katya is conventionally beautiful and breaks social conventions. She is blunt, opinionated, childless, sexually adventurous, and claims to give little value to money. Her view on reproduction directly opposes that of Sergei's family, which has 2 children and expects a third without the ability to financially support themselves. Similarly to Phyllis, Katya defies the patriarchal family unit. Unlike Elena, who is content with her arrangement with Vladimir, Katya represents a new type of woman who is independent, though through her father's money, and according to him, spends her days enjoying herself. Her refusal to have children is a sign of her rejection of the patriarchal order. The character of Sergei embodies other qualities of the femme fatale trope by employing manipulation to push the protagonist Elena to commit the crime. Vladimir is also to some extent depicted as a morally uncertain character. His moral ambiguity is highlighted through the color pink, which is seen on younger women. Pink contrasts with the rest of the color palette, blue and brown, and represents Vladimir's interest. Elena, as part of the color scheme, is part of his regular mundane life. Juxtaposition is used to highlight the divide between the 2 worlds of Elena and Vladimir, the poor and the rich, the semi-rural and the capitalistic behavioral model. We see a clear juxtaposition between Sergei and Vladimir. Sergei is characterized as lazy, ungroomed, leading an unhealthy lifestyle and using foul language. His home is cluttered and reflects the chaos of his world, as well as the unawareness of the cause and effect relationship between actions and consequences. This is exemplified by the sudden appearance of the problem of Sasha's poor grades and inability to get into university. Vladimir, on the other hand, is depicted as hardworking, always well-groomed, orderly, and despite his older age, physically active. The cool and sterile atmosphere of his apartment reflects the structure of his life and his ability to plan the future. Despite the contrasting cultural contexts of the 2 films, both Double Indemnity and Elena depict the detached family relationships and represent the attempt to escape the patriarchal family unit. Romantic relationships are portrayed as loveless and disconnected, and fundamentally based on economic transactions. Both Phyllis and Elena are alien in their environments and feel out of place in their homes. Thematic ideas in both films are reinforced through conventional film noir tropes and reflect the cultural context of the films.